Dr. Tracy Page, and welcome to Health Made Easy, where we discuss topics focused on hormonal health, weight loss, and wellness. Yes, you heard me. I want to make being healthier easier. Don't get me wrong, we all have to do the work, myself included, but let's make being healthy less complicated. I'll provide clear, simple, and actionable steps that you can implement into your daily life. Really, who doesn't want to feel better? If you're ready to increase your energy, optimize your well-being, and restore your health, then listen up. I love helping my patients and listeners optimize their health and clear away the brain fog, shed the excess weight, improve their mood, and really change the way they age. I am a triple board certified physician, and I created Health Made Easy just for you. Let's get started on today's topic. Welcome. Today, we are going to talk about gluten, and is it a nutritional no-no? And should you keep it in your diet or should you take it out? So I see quite a few patients in my practice who come in with gas and bloating and discomfort. They also come in with things that have nothing to do with their abdomen, like joint pain, fatigue, brain fog, even acne or eczema on their skin. And we always eventually talk about their diet because food is medicine. And when we talk about their diet, sometimes, I would say probably 8 out of 10 times, gluten and the topic of gluten sensitivity or celiac disease comes up. Some of my patients have never heard of these topics before, and some of my patients are very, very familiar with gluten and maybe have eliminated it from their diet or have talked about it or read about it or attempted to eliminate it from their diet. But for those of you who don't know what gluten is, or you know about gluten and you're not sure if you should eliminate it from your diet or if you should keep it in your diet, today we're going to talk about gluten and is it a nutritional no-no or should you keep it in your diet? So my goal today is to help you determine if gluten is a problem for you. And I will do that by telling you what gluten actually is, what is celiac disease, what is gluten sensitivity, which is different than celiac disease, what testing is needed in order to find out if you have this problem, and then maybe it's not gluten. Maybe you have something else. And we'll talk about Fodmap, and then we'll also talk about whether or not you should go gluten-free and how you can determine. So, what is gluten? Gluten is a protein, actually, and the general name for the protein is gliadin, which is water insoluble, and the component of gluten. And then the other one is gluten, which is spelled Glutenin, which is water soluble and is also a component of gluten. So there's two of them. There are two proteins that make up gluten. Now, both are found in wheat, but they're also found in other grains like spelt and barley and rye. And then you can find them a lot of times in pastas, noodles, bread, pastries, crackers, cereals, baked goods, breaded foods, and sauces and gravies and beer and even flour tortillas. I mean, gluten is in everything. And so this is really difficult for some patients when you tell them that they have to go gluten-free. So the thing about gliadin is a specific protein. It's associated with most digestive issues that are caused by gluten. So it's that one protein. And gluten really is just a sticky protein. It's got a glue-like substance. That's why it's called gluten. It's got a glue-like substance or consistency, which gives, bread its elasticity when we bake it, and it helps these other refined products that I spoke about, pasta, noodles, pastries, crackers, cereals, helps make them what they are. So how does gluten relate to celiac disease? So when we think of celiac disease, it affects about 1% of the population. And it is a genetic autoimmune disorder. That's the most severe form of gluten intolerance. So those who have celiac disease almost always have a genetic or gene expression. It's called DQ2 and or DQ8. And they have that in addition to the presence of autoantibodies against gluten proteins, which is what caused the negative reaction. When people who have celiac disease ingest gluten, it's not pretty. So they typically can experience severe digestive issues. They'll get weight fluctuations because they have a major inflammatory event. So when you have inflammation, you'll hold fluid and then their weight will go up. And then they'll get skin and joint problems, as well as malabsorption, and they won't absorb key nutrients. So you're probably wondering, what is the treatment for celiac disease? And honestly, it is strict adherence to a gluten-free diet. And then that resolves the gluten intolerance symptoms. So it's almost like you take away the thing that you're reacting to. And this helps heal the intestinal damage and allows the body to heal. And all of that happens because you remove gluten from the diet. But it's hard. It's not easy to remove gluten. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. So some patients come into me and they've had the gene testing, they've had the blood testing for autoantibodies and they're negative, and they still notice that they're having joint pain, bloating, gas, different symptoms. And I talk to them about gluten sensitivity. So you can have a negative celiac disease, but you can still be gluten sensitive. And this is actually seen more often. More patients are non celiac immune, but they have a reaction to gluten. And they usually have the symptoms that we've talked about, plus some more. They have headaches, joint pain, fatigue. They can have hormonal imbalance and brain fog. They'll notice gas, bloating. They can have acne or eczema. And the main difference is when they have a gluten sensitivity, it's not an allergy. They don't have gene markers, they don't have autoantibodies, and they don't really get intestinal damage the way you get with gluten. They still can get gas and bloating and abdominal pain, but they don't get the intestinal damage. So, how do you know whether or not you have celiac disease or if you have a gluten sensitivity? So, with celiac disease, the preliminary diagnosis is like we were just talking about. We use blood and genetic testing to confirm the diagnosis. We then can use endoscopy or biopsy of the intestinal wall. So, you can usually start out with a blood test and see, does the patient have autoantibodies? Are they positive for DQ2 and or DQ8 genes? And then if there's still uncertainty, or if you want a positive diagnosis, you can do an intestinal biopsy. For patients who are non celiac but still have gluten sensitivity, you have a little bit more difficult time giving the patient a diagnosis. And this is because it takes some effort from the patient, as well as there can be some confusion of whether it's not a gluten sensitivity or maybe it's a Fodmap issue. And I'll talk about what Fodmap is. So, when it's a non celiac gluten sensitivity, you really have to kind of rule things out because there's a lot of digestive disorders that can prevent with the symptoms that I just was speaking about. So, what you want to do is you want to rule out celiac disease. So, it's a blood test for autoantibodies and genes. And if those are negative, you don't have to go on to a biopsy. You want to rule out wheat allergies, and patients can be tested for wheat allergies. You want to rule out other disorders which could be associated with those symptoms. So if someone comes in with joint pain, or if they have acne, or if they have headaches or fatigue, hormonal imbalance, you want to make sure that that's not the root cause of their symptoms and it has nothing to do with gluten. And then you can put a patient on an elimination diet. And this is where patient effort comes in, because I'll be the first to say it's not easy to go on an elimination diet. We like to eat what we eat. That's why we pick it. That's why we choose it. And, very few people eat for just hunger. We eat for so many different reasons. And so when you have patients who eat for stress or for emotion or for procrastination or for boredom or for whatever reason, when you start taking away the foods that they're used to eating, especially those convenient foods, it can be a problem. But when you do an elimination diet, you're going to see if the symptoms improve, and that will help you know if gluten is the source. Also, there's food sensitivity testing, and I've done this with my patients before. There is some controversy. Some practitioners don't like food sensitivity testing. I'm a big fan of it because I think it just creates awareness to the patient about how food is medicine. So, one, it allows them to see which foods they're sensitive to. And then I will tell you, I've seen time and time again, we eliminate foods and patients get better. So, food sensitivity testing is a blood test. It can assess any potential protein reactivity to wheat, to gluten containing foods. And what's nice is you can do a lot of array of foods. So you can do dairy products, you can do meat, shellfish, you can do fruits and vegetables, and some miscellaneous products. So I really like food sensitivity testing just to create some awareness and to give my patients some guidelines onto what they should eliminate from their diet. But how will you really know once you eliminate gluten if it's really the source of the problem? So I will tell you, some patients who have, before COVID and when we were traveling quite often, patients have told me that when they travel outside the United States, such as Europe, they notice that if they have a problem with gluten containing foods in the United States, they don't like pasta. They don't have that same problem when they go to Europe or if they're in Italy and they're having pasta. And that's because Europe, they use a soft wheat, which has naturally lower levels of gluten protein. While here in the United States, we know we have a hard wheat, which is known to have higher levels of gluten in it. So that's why you may have a problem here, but not overseas. Also, bread in Europe is thought to have less preservatives, less additives, ultimately creates a product that has fewer ingredients and therefore is less processed and therefore patients have less symptoms. Also, I think they bake their bread even slower. They have like a slow rise time. So it allows for more fermentation, which means gluten is more thoroughly broken down. Therefore, it's not as prevalent and therefore patients don't react as much. This podcast is brought to you by Orthomolecular Products, the exclusive supplement company of the Wisconsin Institute of Functional Medicine. I have chosen Orthomolecular because they are a leader and an innovator in the functional medicine space since it was founded over 31 years ago. They follow the latest science and combine the highest quality of ingredients to produce effective nutritional solutions for clinicians like myself to use with my patient. They control the entire manufacturing process, they know exactly what is in each capsule, and they offer products free of allergenic additives and preservatives. This is just one of the many reasons I decided to carry Orthomolecular products in my office. You can book an appointment today to learn about how my team and our partners at Orthomolecular can help you reach your health goals when nutraceuticals are needed. You can call us at 920-968-9311 or visit us on our website at wisconsinfunctionalmed.com. It's all one word, wisconsinfunctionalmed.com. We use Orthomolecular products because efficacy and your health really matter. So there was actually an interesting finding when they did some test tube studies. They showed that when intestinal cells, so the cells in your gut, are exposed to gluten, that intestinal permeability occurs, which means those tight junctions that keep toxins and other things out of our blood. So that intestinal permeability increased, not in a good way. Not just with those who had gluten sensitivity, but even patients who didn't have gluten sensitivity. So the study was suggesting that gluten may promote inflammation and also promote a leaky gut. And if you don't know what a leaky gut is, it's loosening of tight junctions in the intestinal wall lining. So we have a lining in our intestine that is made to keep toxins and chemicals and food products and so forth out of our blood. And therefore it's permeable to let only nutrients get through. But when those tight junctions are loose or we have increased permeability, then other things get through. And there is a suggestion that gluten causes increased permeability. So this can cause bacteria and toxins to seep through the intestine into the body. And then the body sees those as foreign and creates an immune reaction. And we don't want that. So that's not good. So the tight junctions, really, we want them to seal the intestine. But if they're chronically open, it can contribute to long-term problems like brain fog, bloating, and even joint pain. So I'm not saying that there is a direct relation between gluten and leaky gut, but there have been some studies that have shown that. Now, I did say earlier that sometimes it's hard to tell whether or not gluten is the problem or is it a Fodmap problem. So for those of you who may not be familiar with Fodmap, it's capital FODMAP, but some patients can react to what's called fermentable fibers that are poorly tolerated, and those are FODMAPs. And it's just an acronym referring to fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols in certain foods. So these foods contain these FODMAPs, and then you eat them, and they go into what's called the small intestine. And there, your body doesn't tolerate them. And so then you get gas and bloating and discomfort. And you look basically like you're 8 or 9 months pregnant. And then the next day, your stomach can be completely flat. So it's really interesting. So you can go from a completely flat abdomen to a completely bloated abdomen when you eat foods and you have a reaction. So gluten-containing grains such as wheat, rye, barley, those are all high Fodmap foods. And some individuals placed on a low Fodmap diet get better and experience similar improvements, just like when you put patients on a gluten-free diet. So that's why there is some crossover. And that's why you really want to try to figure out the root cause of where the symptoms are coming from. So the question is, you know a little bit now about gluten. And the question is, should you go gluten-free? So, do you have symptoms of headaches, joint pain, fatigue, hormonal imbalance, brain fog? You get gas, bloating. Your skin may break out with acne, or you may have eczema. So, in order to know if those symptoms are coming from gluten, you can rule out celiac. So, that's a blood test you can do with your doctor. You could do an elimination diet, and you could actually take a break from gluten and see if the symptoms improve. And usually I recommend, I would say at least a month, but usually 6 weeks of an elimination diet. And then you can reintroduce the foods. And we call that like a challenge to the body. And I usually tell my patients, just introduce one food a week and see how your body responds, because it gives you time to eat it for several days, see how your body reacts to it, and then decide if you think it is a food that's causing inflammation and discomfort. So that's an easy way without any tests at all, just something you could do at home to see if you have a gluten sensitivity. And the key is that you have to remove the foods that contain gluten. And that's where it can be a little bit difficult, because remember, there are a lot of foods that contain gluten, so you have to read labels. There's pasta, noodles, bread, pastries, crackers, cereals, baked goods, breaded foods, certain sauces and gravies, as well as beer and flour tortillas. And then also the simple things like barley, spelt, and wheat. And I'll tell you, so it just happened for me. So I don't have celiac disease. I've been tested. I did do actually the food sensitivity test. And I think corn gluten on mine came up. But it was interesting. My husband made chicken a week or so ago. And I was just thinking, so I have I broke my ankle as a teen. And so whenever I have inflammation in my body, I can usually tell because my ankle will swell up, and I also have arthritis. So, right. But it always seems to swell up in my ankle if I have any difficulties. So it was interesting is that I was just saying to him, gosh, my ankle hardly swells anymore. And he used to think it was from running, but I've been running for a long time and I'll run and my ankle doesn't swell at all. So I noticed that it swells when I have inflammation. So when I have any GI issues, or if I feel swollen, my rings are tight or things like that. So he made chicken and he purchased this new seasoning. My husband loves to cook and he's an amazing cook. And he purchased this new seasoning and the chicken was fabulous. And I had it on Sunday afternoon. And then I had it again for dinner Monday night. And I think I even had it again, like in a salad on Tuesday. And my whole ankle swelled up. My rings were tight. I mean, and I eat chicken all the time. It was just really kind of crazy. And so I'm all about the why. So I kept going back there. Why is this happening? What's going on? And, I was thinking about my workout. Did I twist my ankle? Did I do something? So I said, I'm not going to eat that chicken and see what happens. So I waited and I didn't eat the chicken for a while. I think I went like the rest of the week. And then, it was very tasty. So I decided to have it again. And sure enough, it happened again. So there's something in the spices that he purchased that my body is reacting to. And I don't think it's gluten, but it's a perfect example of how our body will tell us if something is right for us or if it's not right for us, if we just pay attention, if we just listen, if we just notice. So I just give you that example because an elimination diet is a very powerful way for you to figure out if you're gluten sensitive and if you should take gluten out of your diet. So I say 4 to 6 weeks, eliminate those foods that are high in gluten, and then reintroduce them one at a time, once a week. That's the key, because then you'll really be able to see the changes. You want to remove all refined grains and processed foods from the diet as well, including those breads, those baked goods, those pastas, processed foods, because they contain gluten. It's very sneaky. They get it in there. And even salad dressings, cheese, soy sauce, and even I said beer has gluten in it. And then we talked about the food sensitivity testing, and there are a lot of different food sensitivity tests out there. I love them. Some doctors say they're not accurate. Some don't like to use them, but I really do like them because I do think it creates awareness again for patients around food and how food is medicine and how our body is reacting. And you have nothing to lose by eliminating some foods and seeing how you feel better. I mean, I've had patients, their rashes have gone away, hives have gone away, their joint pain has gone away. I remember one patient who had a lot of joint pain and she thought for sure she had Lyme's disease. And we tested her for Lyme's and she was negative. And so she ultimately did the food sensitivity testing and sugar came up on the list along with a whole bunch of other things. So she eliminated all the foods. It wasn't that many. I think it was 10. She eliminated all the foods and then she started adding them back one at a time. And when she got to sugar, you can imagine she was super excited to add sugar back. And when she did, she woke up with horrible joint pain. And so she just couldn't believe it was sugar. And so she eliminated the sugar again, went on with her other foods. And then her joint pain went away and she came back to sugar and she added it in her diet. And sure enough, her joint pain came back. So she was really disappointed, but at least now she knows the source of what causes joint pain. For her, it causes inflammation and then her joints hurt. So I think the food sensitivity testing is valuable. And if you have an opportunity to do it, I think it can give you some really good information. The other thing that's important to remember is that there's a lot of foods out there that are labeled gluten-free, and you need to be careful because a lot of times they usually are high in sugar, they're high in carbs, which in themselves cause inflammation. So these gluten-free foods tend to be very processed, so be very careful. I think when you are going to go gluten-free and give it a test, make sure you just eat real food. So I say eat natural foods that contain no gluten, like fresh fruits, vegetables, beans, legumes, nuts, seeds, fish, seafood, meat, and poultry. All of those things are good for you, and all of those things have no gluten in them. After your elimination period, then you can decide, is gluten a no-no and should be taken out of your diet, or is gluten something that you can have in your diet if it doesn't cause any type of side effects? It's really amazing to see that food is medicine. I see it every day in my practice. And today I'm talking to you about gluten. Tomorrow I could talk to you about sugar. Next week I could talk to you about alcohol. And it doesn't mean that each one of those foods are bad. It just really depends on you and your body and your diet and what works for you and what doesn't work for you. So keep that in mind. But, there's a big fad about being gluten-free. But I say before you take gluten out of your diet, see if it really is a cause of your symptoms. In the process, you may find out it's something else entirely different. And then if you truly have celiac disease, you do need to refrain from any gluten in your diet. Also, I will tell you, if you have thyroid disease, I have seen a lot with autoimmune thyroid problems, especially Hashimoto's, that you need to take gluten out of your diet. The thyroid works so much better when you do. And if you're not sure if that's you, do an experiment. Take it out of your diet, see how you feel, see how your thyroid functions, see how your thyroid numbers come back, and then you'll know the answer to the question. So I hope this information helps. You can always reach out to me for any questions or concerns. But remember always, food is medicine. So what you do and what you eat every day can change the way that you age. Take care. This is an important reminder. The podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a diagnosis or a prescription for care. Please consult with your healthcare practitioner before moving forward with any of the therapies or treatments discussed in today's podcast. If today's topic resonated with you and you want more information, please check out our website, wisconsinfunctionalmed.com. All one word, wisconsinfunctionalmed.com. Also, for those of you who want further assistance with weight loss, consider our online weight loss program called The Pause, which can be found under Services. We really focus on helping you reach your weight loss goals. We provide a supportive and interactive and engaging environment, which is led by me, Dr. Tracy Page, so you can get all the help you need. Remember, you can change the way you age, and I'm here to help.